Welcome back. We're here again talking to Tatiana, and I'm Tatiana Sawyer. And wanted to start a series of interviewing people who've done bookkeeping, who've been business owners, have been entrepreneurs, and to share their story, but also provide a valuable lesson to you as a listener, potentially something that you can learn from and skip the mistakes that they've made and potentially get to where you want to be faster. So today, I'm happy to invite Kate. She's my sister, also chief photographer, and many other things in my life. But as far as you are concerned, as a listener, as a watcher, if you're watching on video on YouTube, then she has a really interesting journey. And uh, I think for me, it was interesting to interview her for this podcast because she's a creative, but also she's been doing some bookkeeping and other things to support herself and her family and really create the life that she wanted to create. And so, Kate, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for such an intro.
It's great to have you on. And what I would like to do is to ask you to share kind of how you got into photography and how things changed. Kind of talk a little bit about, and you will be talking more than I will. Talk a little bit about how things changed when you moved to the U.S. And let's then I'll ask you about more about how and when you decided to learn bookkeeping and but I want to talk to you first about your passion and how you've got into that and what's important for you in that, and also what drawbacks potentially um, exist in a creative business like that.
Well, it all started when I was, I guess, 16. It was like one of the last years at school, and I took that course, photography course, where they taught us basic rules of photography, and all of the creative stuff. And ever since I was in love, and I'm still am, I'm still am. What am I saying? I still am. Yeah, but I would probably go to college to study photography, but Dad insisted for me to get a normal degree, in his opinion, meaning a degree that could protect me financially in the future because creative fields are not that stable. So I did bachelor's in business management in the United Kingdom, and I kept doing photography as a hobby and sometimes some small gigs, small photo shoots here and there. And then I moved to US, United States, where it was hard to start a photography business at first because I didn't know many people. I didn't know how to get the audience, so I started with waitersing jobs, then hostess jobs, then I was a store manager in Williamsburg, and I was still doing photography, but it didn't really pay much because I didn't have a big audience. I didn't know anyone to promote me or to help me to get clients. But still, we were new to the country. We needed money to support ourselves, to pay bills, to pay rent, and the rent is extremely expensive, in my opinion. Yeah, so I started working at that store. In Williamsburg. It's no longer there. They closed, and there was a guy who was doing bookkeeping for the owner. And at some point, he just went to Mexico and kind of disappeared. He stopped responding to our messages, stopped like just completely MIA. I was freaking out because I was the only one in New York in the store. The owner, she lived in Miami, and she was like, "Well, you have to invoice clients." I'm like, I didn't know how to do that. I was like, I don't know QuickBooks. I don't know the software. I don't know how it's done. I mean, yeah, I had theoretical knowledge of invoicing and financing from college, but I never done it before. Even though you always insisted on me learning that, but who listens to that when you're 17? So yeah, so I was forced to learn how to invoice through QuickBooks. They had QuickBooks Online at that time, and little by little, I became very comfortable with invoices, but I didn't know anything else, like how to like do the payroll because they didn't do payroll. They had 1099 employees. how to manage expenses there, how to categorize all of that. So I worked there for a year, and then I decided to move on. I wanted to try giving a photography a big push. Nothing really happened, even though I started shooting more. It wasn't stable enough. So I needed some stability in my finances so I could still enjoy doing photography, but be able to pay all of the expenses that I need to pay. And then, by kind of an accident, I found a job. It was advertised as office manager, and I went for the interview. And the girl who was interviewing me, she was moving to Germany. That's why she was leaving. She was like, "You can do it. Like, I'll teach you. I'll show you how it's done." They had QuickBooks desktop version, and I was like, "Okay." I didn't knew much, but I knew some stuff. And she, within 2 weeks, she taught me like really basics, and then it was just wow. It became clear that that kind of job, it wasn't hard to do. I learned really quick, and I could do more.
So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about where your photography business is now. Like, what do you focus on? What are you passionate about? Where do you see kind of that taking you next?
Well, ever since I had kids, I my photography, I would say, wave it switched a little to family photography. Before I was interested in lifestyle, in fashion, but now when I started photographing my kids and families, it makes more sense, and it's kind of closer to heart. When I see babies, I like right away I think about poses, about how they can do that or this, or how they can play cute so I can take pictures. So it's kind of like automated in the head already. You don't have to invent a wheel. Like, you just do whatever you do with your kids, and you tell people to do that.
That's cool.
So yeah, so I'm headed towards that, and also I'm doing more and more studio photography lately. So I'm thinking about opening a studio for myself, but not completely sure just yet. I mean, it's somewhere there in the horizon, but just not yet.
Okay. And so I know that you've worked a number of different bookkeeping jobs kind of as you were getting more photography business. And can you talk a little bit about the nature of of a creative business like that? Meaning, why it's not necessarily a perfect I guess, path for, I don't know, a mom, or maybe it is in some ways, or maybe talk about why, if you think that that's the case, why having something like a bookkeeping skill on the side can support you as a creative.
Well, I have a great example regarding all of this. When COVID started, all of the daycares, they got closed. So I couldn't really do any work outside of the house. In addition to that, people were too scared to be in the same room with other people. Everybody isolated, and it was impossible to book sessions. Nobody booked. But knowing QuickBooks, knowing bookkeeping, I was able to still, like, I was with my kids. I would work during their nap times, or when I put them down to bed in the evening, or when it's bath time, I would just have my laptop and work in the bathroom. So I was still I was still doing work. I was still getting money without leaving my house, and it was great because if I were doing just photography, I wouldn't be able to earn any money at that time, unless I would create some kind of, I don't know, online workshop or a course. But I like, it's not my thing, so I was not looking into that.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you worked from a bathroom. That's interesting. I
I mean,
find
they
that
were they were playing in the bathtub, and I had some things to do.
to improvise, right? Because every business's books have to be done regularly. So
Right.
payroll has to be done, has to be closed. So there's always work for that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
And
so, yeah,
sorry, I just wanted to add that during COVID, it was it was really busy. So like every day I would have to do something. It was great because like I was doing something. It means I'm making money. So
That's
yeah, it was a great opportunity. Like I was busier than before with bookkeeping.
that's awesome. Really awesome. And how do you like in terms of working full time for somebody else? Because I know you've done that before you had kids, and working for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to more of a committed to entrepreneurship, I guess, path?
Well, yeah, I did one big full-time job in accounting, bookkeeping field. And I loved it at first. It was great to be a part of a team, to be in the office with all of them, and you share jokes, you share your life and all of that. But the commute was terrible. I mean, it's from Brooklyn to Manhattan. It's at least 1 hour, plus rush hours, plus delays. So take 1 hour and a half. That was crazy. Then opposed to that, it was great. The pay was okay. It was good for a full time job, but being a freelance bookkeeper, I get more money. Um, then at some point, it just felt like it wasn't good enough for me because I wasn't able to, I was pregnant, so I had to take some time off to go to appointments, and it was like always they would give me a hard time about it. I would always have to ask, and they would, okay, because you're pregnant, like they can't tell you anything, in your face. But they were not happy about it, even though they in the beginning they said they're gonna be okay. They were not really happy about it, so I wasn't that flexible. Then I had a baby, and I kept going to work, and I was still stressed because I felt like I'm not giving my child enough attention. Like I'm not spending enough time with her, even though like I spend tons of time, and it's just mom guilt. It never goes away, whatever you do. Yeah, so the commute was killing me. It's like basically 3 hours of your day on the train, getting there and getting back. Um, I would just get home around 7, bath my child, feed her, put her to sleep, and that's it. That's all the time I get to spend. So yeah, it was crazy. It just opposed to being a part time or freelance bookkeeper, it's a huge difference. I mean, I can work at night. I can work when they nap. I can work when they beg for one cartoon. I can work while they eat, and I'm still there. And I can go to appointments if they're sick. I can take them to doctor at any time I need. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to ask for permissions or Um, I am my own boss.
And in terms of kind of looking forward into the future a little bit, do you see yourself kind of pursuing the freelance setup of your life, both creative and bookkeeping, or either, or do you see yourself working for a company, or what are your thoughts?
No company jobs for sure. Even in photography, there are corporate jobs like you work for this and that production. I don't want that for sure. Bookkeeping wise, I think I would still keep like a client or two, just to have this stable piece of income that I know I'm gonna get. Because you never know what happens. Like COVID today, next day it's monkeypox, and another day it's something else. You never know what's gonna happen and how people are gonna be frustrated about it. And I think I'm gonna keep some bookkeeping clients just to make this stability pillow.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And kind of looking back to when you started your journey, both in creative aspects of the work and whatever, just looking back, like let's say 10 whatever years ago, 8, 10 years ago, I guess. Do you have anything that, can you name one thing that, let's say, you are really a decision that you made, or one thing that you proud of that you did that sets you up for the future, or something of that nature, meaning something that you can share, that if someone is listening and they're maybe feeling that they are more of a creative, that they would hear you share something and would say, oh, I should do that for myself. Something that you really are happy that you did, happy about that you did, and something that really helped you kind of as you built that life for yourself.
Mm, I would suggest them start looking for something stable sooner or later than later. Sorry. Because it took me some time, and if I knew from the beginning that it's going to be such a struggle to grow your creative business, I would have probably thought about bookkeeping sooner or opened my mind to this idea. Um, Bookkeeping is a great skill, so I would suggest definitely looking into that. Not even for the side gig or like extra stability income, um, but managing your own expenses, because as a photographer, you're basically an entrepreneur, and that's your business. So you have to know how to categorize whatever you're spending, categorize whatever you're receiving, and all of that is just impossible to do if you don't know the basics. And that's where bookkeeping comes.
And especially when you're starting out, I guess, because you can't afford really to pay someone a lot of money to do it for you.
Right. And if you pay shitty money, then you're going to get shitty service and your books are going to be screwed. I mean, it's true.
Music to my ears. Awesome. And so, if you could go back in time, let's say 10, 12 years ago, what would you tell your younger self? One thing that you would tell your younger self to do or to think or to know, or what do you share? What would that one thing be?
Listen to your sister?
Older sister. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In terms of work and like work skills.
Definitely need some good skills. It doesn't have to be bookkeeping, but I think that it has to be something that's a skill. So, like engineering is a skill,
Or like
accounting is a skill,
programming.
programming. That's right. Something that's a skill that you can always make money if you, if
If
whatever you're
you're struggling
pursuing.
with your dream or whatever you're doing.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for for coming on such short notice to record this episode. I'm really happy to see when people use the skill of bookkeeping. And if you have any questions in terms of um, you know mindset or coaching or mentoring, you're welcome to ask them now, or reach out through my Instagram. If those For those of you who are listening, and everybody including Kate are encouraged to reach out. But I talk about my sister Kate a lot. I talk about her in my webinars and trainings that I do, about how important it is to have passion, but also to have a skill that will pay your bills. Um, because life is unpredictable and nobody predicted COVID, for example, right? So you need a skill that will pay the bills, and that could be bookkeeping. It's a great skill for moms, because you can do it whenever, just like Kate said, like you said, from the bathroom toilet seat if you wanted to. And so definitely, thanks so much for sharing that wisdom. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now.
I would probably ask just what would you recommend if it was 10 years ago, where would you recommend to start? Because I didn't want to listen to you back then, so kind of ignored whatever you said. So if it was 10 years ago, what would you say for me to pursue this skill that I went after anyways?
So uh, 10, 15 years ago, when I was starting out 17 years ago, but there was, and there still is, a number of certificate programs and colleges that I talk often about in my webinar, um, bookkeeping your way to freedom. But I talk about it because there are programs that give you a certificate in bookkeeping. The problem is, and I've explored that in the very beginning of my career. I explored it because I already was working at work. I was working as a bookkeeper, and I was like, okay, how can I make more money with it? So I was exploring those programs. But what I saw was that they're teaching some basics. But first of all, they're teaching the QuickBooks online at the time, or at the time it was desktop. I can't remember. They're teaching you how to do payroll. Now most payroll is done automatically. Like there are accountants who do manual payroll, but um, the service costs like $50, $60 a month. It's really, there's no point of spending time to do that. But back then I was considering that program, and I would send people to that program and actually have sent people to that program. But now that my program is out, obviously I recommend taking this program because I teach the accounting basics. But if somewhere in between those two, 17 years ago versus now, somewhere in between there, as I finished college and I really excelled in accounting and everything, I actually kept my principles of accounting book, where it all started for me. When I learned and memorized some of those basics, that's when it clicked. That's when I started making a lot more money per hour. And so if it was 10 years ago, I would tell you, okay, here's the book. You need to go through these principles. It wasn't a thick book. It was, an average textbook. Go through the principles, learn the principles, and that's how you will be excellent as a bookkeeper, because bookkeeping is accounting 101 essentially. The debits and credits, the T accounts, the normal balances, all of that is principles of accounting, and that's exactly what accountants learn to begin with. But bookkeepers typically don't, because there's no really like formal training that teaches those things in a meaningful way.
Right. I
So,
actually I agree with that because back in college I was doing business management, but we still had some financing modules. So one of those was accounting, where I learned the basics, which you're teaching at your course for a really great price, I think. Um, and I think that's essential to know for to everyone. It doesn't matter if you want to get the skill. It matters because you spend money, you earn money, and that's a part of our life. And you have to know how to use your money and how to spend your money.
yeah.
It's not it's not a rocket science, but I think everybody should know those basics. Basic knowledge. It's essential.
I absolutely agree. And I used to tell people when I was graduating college, this was 2008, 2009. I used to tell people, and people used to laugh at me. I used to say that accounting is like everyone should major in accounting plus something else. So, like, if you're passionate about history, great, get history and accounting double major. And the reason I said back then, at that point, I was working for small business for 3, 4 years. And uh, like, if you're a doctor, if you don't know the basics of money management, which accounting teaches, you can get stolen from. You can potentially run a big tab of expenses. You can um, spend too much more than you earn. There's all kinds of things. So even doctors need to know some accounting, I think.
Agree. Totally agree. I mean, it's money is a big part of our life, and you need to know how to use it.
Yep, and spend it and earn it. And yeah, absolutely. Music to my ears. Thanks so much for being a great guest, for,
Thank you for inviting.
for sharing your story. And I hope that the story will inspire someone to start early with a skill that can make money. And it, again, doesn't have to be bookkeeping, but bookkeeping seems to be an easier to learn kind of and easy to find jobs, because really there's always demand for a great bookkeeper. So thanks so much. And for those of you who are listening or watching, some of the links on how to find Kate will be posted under the video or in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast. And thanks so much again for coming on as a guest, and it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right, see you everyone.